Today on What Now? Global outrage after Israeli forces detain hundreds of activists, including Greta Thunberg, as an aid flotilla bound for Gaza is intercepted in international waters. And in the DRC, former President Joseph Kabila is sentenced to death in absentia on war crimes charges, a verdict that could upend fragile peace talks. Hello and thanks for joining us. This is What Now, where we look at international affairs and global and geopolitics. I am Precious Amayu. Now, hundreds of activists, including Swedish climate campaigner Greta Thunberg, have been detained after Israeli forces intercepted an aid flotilla bound for Gaza international waters. The global Sumud Flotilla, carrying hundreds of passengers from 40 nations, was stopped about 70 nautical miles off Gaza's coast. Israel says the vessels were violating a lawful naval blockade and entering an active combat zone.
Hey. Hello, my name is Katrina and I'm speaking for the boat Aurora. If you are seeing this video, we have been...
Activists call the move illegal, accusing Israel of assaulting passengers and using water cannon. There is outrage and it is mounting. Colombia has expelled the Israeli diplomats and ended a trade deal, while Amnesty International calls the blockade itself unlawful. Protests have now erupted across Europe and beyond, and the UN is urging Israel to lift the siege and allow humanitarian aid in. Rights groups and several governments are now urging Israel to allow humanitarian shipments through as Gaza's crisis deepens. The flotilla's organizers say more vessels will attempt to break the blockade in coming days, despite repeated Israeli interceptions. I'm joined by Dr. Jide Ojo. He's a development consultant and an author. He joins me via Zoom. Good to have you join us, Dr. Ojo.
Good afternoon, Precious. It's my pleasure.
So Israel says this is a lawful blockade because, according to them, it is international waters which enjoy freedom of navigation. But those on board call this an abduction. Some world leaders have criticized Israel's action. How would you describe this? How do you see it?
Sincerely, it's condemnable, it's unfortunate, and it is anti-humanitarian. For God's sake, this flotilla contains only humanitarian items, foodstuffs, just to ameliorate the suffering of the people of Gaza. And now they are intercepted and being deported back to their respective countries. This is uncalled for because even in a war situation, you are not supposed to allow your enemies to starve to death. And that seems to be what Israel is trying to do. Earlier in the week, we learned about the 20-point peace deal that U.S. government has tried to broker. We are yet to hear from Gazan authority whether they will accept or not. But it will seem to me like what Israel is trying to do is the issue of not feeding your enemies and not maybe kind of mounting pressures to allow to pressure the
All right, we seem to be having a network challenge there with Dr. Ojo. We'll try and reconnect with him and continue the conversation. But let's just continue to look at what's playing out in between Israel and Gaza, especially on the issue of the flotilla, where those on board have been apprehended. Israel said it is taking them to Ashdod, the port of Ashdod. But a coalition of activists launched a high-profile attempt to break Israel's blockade of Gaza, but their mission ended in confrontation at sea. The global Sumud Flotilla, made up of 4 ships carrying more than 5,000 tons of aid, set sail from Europe last month. Its mission: to deliver food, water, and medical supplies to Gaza and then draw global attention to the humanitarian crisis in the enclave. But on September the 29th, Israeli naval forces intercepted the lead vessel, Handala, in international waters. Activists and journalists on board were detained and taken to the port of Ashdod. The other ships were forced to return back. Despite the setback, campaigners behind the flotilla say they will keep trying to deliver aid and keep pressure on Israel to end the blockade of Gaza, where more than 2 million people face worsening hunger. I understand we have Dr. Jide Ojo back now. You were speaking to the issues there, especially as it concerns the humanitarian aid. Israel's defense has always been that Hamas takes this aid to feed themselves, and so it blames all of the situation in that region on Hamas. But when you see now what has happened, I mean, is that narrative still sustainable?
Of course not, Precious. It's not sustainable, and it is just calling a dog a bad name in order to hang it. I was earlier giving statistics of the number of deaths that have been recorded, over 66,000 in the last 2 years. And you could see that there is only one aggressor here, which is the state of Israel. Even the peace deal that is trying to be brokered is lopsided against the people of Gaza. But while I do not want to preempt what would be the response of the Gazan Authority, the bottom line is that even in a war situation, you are not supposed to starve the people who you are having a fight with. You are not supposed to starve them to death. Every day, people get killed, bombed, injured in the city of Gaza. Yes, I know. Way back in 2023, it was the Gaza militants that first, attacked Israel. But I mean, the reverse has been disproportionate, because when you look at how much the Gaza Strip has suffered in the hands of the Israeli Authority, it's genocidal. The attack is very genocidal. But I think the pressure needs to be mounted on the state of Israel by different countries across the world for the authorities in Israel to allow humanitarian aid to get into Gaza, because these people also have a right to life, the same way the Israeli people have a right to life.
And Dr. Ojo, yes, which is the major challenge here, the issue of the proportional response, because in diplomacy, that's a big issue where, once you're attacked, it has to be a proportional response. You cannot go overboard in terms of responding. But Israel currently has 2 ICJ decisions against it and also an ICC judgment. Do you see any further consequences that probably can be upheld?
Well, unfortunately, I can't see, because they continue to enjoy the backing of United States of America. And that's why, in spite of all the acts of aggression, including against the neighboring countries to Palestine, such as Lebanon, Syria, Iran, the UN Security Council has not really been able to get a unified position. U.S. government will always back the state of Israel. Even the recently concluded UN General Assembly, you could see that about 77 countries staged the walkout against Benjamin Netanyahu, but it doesn't seem to make any difference as far as they are concerned. Even people have queried that, okay, there's a warrant of arrest against Netanyahu. How come he flew to US and was still able to attend the UN General Assembly? But, well, in international diplomacy, you have to also be err on the side of caution, because while, there are issues of this nature, diplomacy is still the best option to resolving the conflict. So I would just appeal that the state of Israel should allow humanitarian aid, because the children that are dying, the women that are dying, are not the militants that are fighting against the state of Israel. Just look at 2 days, was it yesterday or 2 days ago, where we had of the attack on the Greater Manchester synagogue, where 2 people were killed, all in sympathy for the people of Gaza, because from what we learned is because the synagogue belonged to the Jews, and the Jews are, of course, Israelis. And you could see that all over the world, Israeli people seems to be targeted for attack, even in US. So it is in the best interest of the state of Israel to also use this proportionate force and allow humanitarian aid so that the famine that has been caused in the Gaza Strip can end. Yes, I know that it's all about self-defense too for the state of Israel. They want to protect their territory. They also want to take out Hamas in such a way that they will not have the capacity and capability to unleash further terror on the state of Israel. But then this is collateral damage that we are seeing. The militants who are who are causing this problem in Gaza are more or less affected. Women and children and persons with disabilities are the one are more at the receiving end in all of this. So, reasoning should be allowed to prevail. And I think U.S. government needs to intervene to allow for humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza. They also have a right to live, just like the Israelis also have a right to live.
Absolutely. So, I was going to ask you, Dr. Ojo, because you mentioned earlier the peace deal, 20-point proposed deal by President Trump. Could this have any impact on that deal? Because initially everyone said, look, Hamas doesn't have any leverage. It would have to agree. But with this latest development, is there back still against the wall? Or could this now be a risk to that deal?
On the contrary, I think it's part of the pressure to make them to accept the deal. In my own estimation, there was a saying during the Nigerian Civil War that you don't feed your enemy when you are at war, and I think it's also what Israel is trying to apply here. That if they are able to starve the people of Gaza of any foreign aid.
All right, he already made a very critical point. Thank you so much, Dr. Jide Ojo, for your time on that development in the Middle East. We'll take a break now. When we return, we'll turn our attention to Africa. Stay with us, everyone.